Both.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you. Good morning. Welcome to the Board of Health meeting on Wednesday, September 29th at 11 a.m. And the agenda has been posted with the appropriate header at the top, so I'm not going to go ahead and read it. And our first matter of business is public comment. So I'd ask anybody who has any comments to please raise their hand. I do not see anyone. So I'm actually going to take the agenda a little bit out of order because we have some people in the audience that I want to move up this morning. So I'm going to ask first to go to 3A, which is under the director nurse update for a COVID update. And then we're going to go to Falltown meeting discussion. So I'd like to get an update on COVID before we talk about that. So Heather and Taylor, if you wouldn't mind.
All right, good morning. I'll start. Our COVID numbers in town, the state tracks them and released on Thursday. So on Thursday last week, they released 31 COVID cases for a 2-week count. That's actually the highest number since February 2021. We are in the old system, they would call that red. I think that Thursday's number will be similar, but I would like to say that this week, the case counts appear to be lower. So then next week's count will hopefully be back in what I would call yellow in the 20s. So we're hoping things have stabilized and may start trending down. Our vaccination rate remains at 94% for eligible residents and 82% of all residents in Southborough. And did you want me to talk about school now or school later?
I think we can do the school later.
Okay.
So we have 12 isolated cases currently. And I would say at this point, most are vaccinated, so all break through pretty much.
Okay.
With the exception of our underage, under eligible children.
Okay. Safdar and Nancy, anything that you want to ask about that? Okay. Okay. So at this point, thank you for that update. I'd like to go to 5A, which is Falltown Meeting Safety Precautions. And if we can bring over Attorney Tallerman and Mr. Hegarty. Attorney Tallerman is our new town council, which I believe Heather's had the chance to speak with, but I don't think this board has had the opportunity. So I did ask him to attend so that we could discuss, how we should proceed with town meeting, given the safety protocols that we discussed at the meeting last time, and given the mask mandate that is present in all municipal buildings at this time. And Mr. Hegarty, as you remember, was at our last meeting and heard the discussion around safety protocols. And I know that he's been at Trottier kind of specking out the options for how to host this town meeting, given kind of the standards that we presented. So good morning to you both. Welcome to the Board of Health. And I guess I'll start off with one of the questions, and maybe there isn't a clear answer available yet, but the recommendation from this board is that we would do 6 feet distancing between people attending town meeting, as well as a mask mandate. And I think, after our last meeting, one of the questions is, how do we enforce the mask mandate in particular? And Attorney Tallerman, have you seen this happen in other communities, and any legal advice that you can give us?
Boy, the 6 feet is easy. You can literally block it off. Sometimes you block it off in singles and doubles, maybe a few triples, because obviously there could be family members attending with each other. But, and I don't have any quarrel with that. The mask question, last year when this came up, we took the position of encouraging masks and certainly requiring them for entry and for exit when people will be interacting and in close proximity. But we felt, and I think the prevailing view around the state was that mandating them in something where people have a right to vote, it's not the same as an election, but a right to vote, would be difficult to enforce. So we came just short of that. What the advice we gave last year is that, look, if you're not going to wear a mask, then we're going to put you in kind of the bad person area, have a kind of a cordoned off area, and that's where you'll be. And that we felt comfortable enough with. But we didn't come quite up to the point where we were saying that you could mandate masks or no attendance at town meeting. I haven't fully come off of that yet, but I'm starting to feel a little bit more confident that we could mandate it. And this is untested to a certain degree. I did see, I was just kind of trolling around on the internet to see what other towns are doing. And I think I saw 1 or 2 towns that are going to try a full-blown mask mandate out there, but I haven't quite seen it in practice yet. You know, it's interesting, town meeting is not considered to be, or town meeting participation does not in other statutes have kind of the same sanctity or as voting at the polls. So there's reason to believe that due to legitimate public safety concerns that we could mandate a mask. That said, one, we would have to enforce it and have the means to enforce it. And we see the kind of acrimony that develops with anti-maskers when that happens. And second, what happens if we get challenged? I don't have a good answer right now as to how that would shake out. Again, attendance at town meeting isn't quite as sacred as voting at the polls. So I have some reason to believe we could require it, but I can't give you 100% opinion on that. I think it is a close question. But we can kind of, as I said, cordon off people who aren't going to wear masks into a small area or even another room altogether, as so long as there are audio visual means of them watching town meeting and a mechanism by which they could ask questions, make motions, etc., either through AV means or being kind of escorted to the outskirts of the regular town meeting so that they could do that. So that's where it stands. I wish I could have something more definitive. We may see a test case or two develop over the next couple months because there's a lot of fall town meetings out there that are brewing.
Okay. I'll open it up to the board if there's any follow-up on the masking question. Go ahead, Nancy. You're on mute, Nancy. You're on mute.
It was the cat.
So I feel like, you know, I've attended a lot of town meetings, and a lot of the people that attend are in a high-risk group for developing COVID. I'm sure they're all vaccinated, but I work in the ICU, and again, we're seeing a ton of breakthrough cases. So if there was a way to cordon off the people that don't want to wear them, that's fine, but I don't think they should be allowed in with the general population at town meeting. I think it's presents some really grave safety issues at this point. We had far more cases in our ICU this summer than last year. I don't think now is the time to let our guard down going into flu season in the winter months.
You know, I agree with Nancy 100%. I think, you know, if there are people that are going to choose not to wear a mask, then they should be somehow isolated from that group. The Charter Auditorium, you know, there's no wind, there's really not a lot of ways to air it out either when you look at the layout of that auditorium as well. So I think that's also going to be a major issue, is where, you know, it does not have good ventilation. And just in terms of layout, I think there's good filtration in place, but no windows or anything to open or anything like that. And secondly, you know, it is a school building. Now, if the state does continue a mandate for school buildings to have masks on, but that's probably only for K through 12 during the school day, I imagine. Is that correct from a legal standpoint? I'm assuming that's the case, but masks will, if the state may continue mask mandates for school buildings longer.
I mean, the building thing is an interesting question. So we have yet another element of control, the school committee, which controls everything that goes on in schools along with the Board of Health. I mean, mandatory masks are mandatory masks in indoor buildings. The only question that comes up here, it's not about your ability to mandate masks indoors. It's when that butts up against a citizen's right to participate in the legislative assembly. Again, legislative assembly, not another kind of exercise of rights such as voting. So again, I would like to, as someone who's kind of pro-mask in these types of environments, would like to think that we could justify it because it's the same justification. So, but there is no adjudication that I'm aware of that equates the right to participate in town meeting with the right to vote at the polls. So we would be essentially potentially forcing the issue. Now, one way at this would be to make the mandate and see what happens when we get there and have a room in reserve. It could be a spare classroom. I know that Jim is working hard on all the AV stuff around town meeting, but it doesn't have, they don't have to have the same quality of town meeting experience if it's that important to them that they don't want to wear a mask. And even if we have all the extra masks on hand, which I'm sure we will, you know, if they really want to show their anti-mask bona fides, then okay, go ahead and do it in the you know, the science room down the hall.
Go ahead, Jim.
I honestly, I'm totally for mandating the masks.
A couple of thoughts on this. We have logistics and we have public perception, and the public perception of safety ties into who will attend. And when you look at the demographic of a typical town meeting attendee, those are people that are high risk for COVID. So we need to do all we can to ensure them that we'll do this in a safe manner. So with that said, the plan would be to hold this primarily in the gymnasium. We'll have more than 6 feet of spacing all around. And in addition, when you enter the gym, the airflow comes from a unit up in the ceiling on the right-hand side. We will replace one half of each of the double doors at the nearly side of the school with plywood with a hole cut in it and air movers to increase the airflow out of the gym. And these things can push a lot of air, and they're very quiet. So we'll have a substantially increased airflow out of the building. We won't be pushing air across anybody. So that will help quite a bit. In addition, we will have the auditorium set up. It's a secondary location. That has a typical capacity of 505 with, based upon the guidance of our last meeting, skipping every other row and every 2 seats. We'll be able to fit 105 people in the give or take. This is very helpful when we get the feedback from Jay on this. I will set up a third room for the people that choose not to have the masks. My suggestion on this is if we tell the public there'll be mandatory masks, we offer masks to people. And if somebody chooses not to have a mask, or if they enter the gym and choose not to have a mask, we will have an ability to put them in a room where they will have audio, video capability. The moderator will be able to see them. We'll have a deputy moderator on hand, and they'll have the ability to make motions, ask questions, and they'll have the full capacity. One thing we will not have at this town meeting versus others is we sometimes had motions up on the main screen in the auditorium, and we're just not going to do that. It's logistically it's challenging, and so that makes things more easier. But that's a very good point. I appreciate that. So we'll have 2 rooms for the typical people and a third for the people that can't or won't wear a mask, and we'll put them across. I would like to get some guidance as to, now everybody's going to enter the facility through the cars, the walkway from the track entering into the gymnasium like they would the vote. So I'd like to have an ability to greet people out there. So a question comes up, can we or should we ask questions about exposure to COVID? You know, if somebody, we ask a question, have you been exposed to COVID? The person says, yes, my wife has COVID right now. How do we address that? You know, we typically put, last couple of meetings, we put a band around somebody's wrist to identify them as a voter versus a non-voter. We could give them a different color band, which will recognize them as a voter, allows them to vote. But again, we put them in that other room with the no mask kind of a room kind of situation. But I'm not sure what kind of questions we can or should ask, who should ask them, and they can look up the language and, you know, do all of that.
Just to clarify, a person with COVID-19 should not be coming to this.
Okay, but the question
They-
comes to
they-
mind. No, I'm with you 100%. But getting back to Jay's thing, when we had in-person only voting, we asked people outside the in-person only voting if they were exposed to COVID questions. And I was shocked at the number of people that showed up and answered affirmatively the questions. And we gave them an opportunity to vote outside. But in a scenario like this, if somebody comes up and they have COVID or exposed to it, they get back to Jay's point. Do we have to make them use some kind of an accommodation for them to participate in the process? And that may well happen, Taylor. I'm looking for guidance as to how we address it. I mean, we're dealing with a legal issue versus kind of a common sense issue here. And we just never know.
Right, what would be the accommodation for someone who's on quarantine? I mean, technically they should be on quarantine if they're.
Right, if a person is in isolation, they should be isolating at home because they are actively contagious. Them showing up to this is a huge risk.
Yep. We certainly could not put them in. So I guess this goes back to Jay. If somebody shows up and they do answer a question that indicates that it's a public safety risk to allow them into the facility, if that were to happen, what do we do? And I was blown away that we had somebody come to early vote and he said, yeah, his wife had COVID and his daughter had COVID. So what are you doing here? I said, and he wanted to vote in person. So come out here and leave somebody down up and let them vote outside. But sometimes, you know, we deal with a lot of good people in town, but we occasionally have somebody that common sense isn't trying to sue.
Yeah, again, I think I feel more confident about barring someone with symptoms or an actual positive COVID test or proximity issue than I would with masks. Again, last year at town meetings, what we were doing was having signage, a placard says, do you have any of these symptoms? If so, please consider turning around and going home. But again, it was more this permissive thing. Now, as we've learned more and we've seen people test and we've seen some court cases that seem to be supporting mask mandates in schools. Again, every student has a right to go to school. But we are seeing kids getting sent home. So it's a similar statute. Do we feel comfortable? And I certainly feel more comfortable that if someone has symptoms or a positive exposure or a full positive test, saying barring them from entry and having that as an absolute ban, and I'd be prepared to defend that. And again, I think it's a close question on masks because we've seen the courts support mask mandates in other areas where people have certain rights attached, and again, mostly around schools. So, you know, we're really close there. I'm all for supporting it. I know that town meetings, by and large, don't have a mask mandate for this fall. I haven't seen, again, with the couple of notable exceptions, I think the town of Norton maybe, but otherwise it's mostly like, please wear a mask. But if this board felt really strongly, given the numbers and this that are out there and trying to curb spread of variants and everything else, if they wanted a go at that, again, I think it's defensible. Where it will take us, I don't know, but I think it's defensible.
Okay. Kayla, could I work with you about language and how we would just, and I'll sign it up to treat people in the corridor, and would you be the person asking those questions?
Sure. I mean, let's find out what the board's going to order and direct, and we would make any town meeting signage, advertising, emails, whatever, Facebook posts, town, website posts, all that conform all to exactly what the board wants to do.
Okay.
So, Jay, we have already taken a motion on masks being mandated in municipal buildings indefinitely. Should we also do a motion to do it specifically for town meeting, even though that's in a municipal building?
I think so. I think you can
Okay.
marry it to it. I would
Okay.
incorporate it, but I think for town meeting, because of some of the rights that attach to it, you
Okay.
should state that some of the individual factual circumstance, the point of entry is a problem for exposure, sitting in a closed room for a prolonged period of time. So you should back up your order with some of the unique facts around town meeting that raise a risk even higher than a casual entry to go get a dog license, for example, at town
Yeah.
hall.
Yeah.
So because there is a significantly higher risk, and if we're challenged on this, and who knows if we are or won't be, I would like to have that additional set of facts to help defend it. And I'm sure there's science to support it and all that. So.
Right. Okay. In terms of asking questions, and I'll open this up to feedback, on whether we should be asking questions upon entry or have some sort of signage that says, if you're experiencing symptoms, please be directed to, the place that Heather or Taylor are. Thoughts on that?
I think the signage probably, because it's going to be too cumbersome and hold
Okay.
things up. I think if we have to do each individual person and temperatures and all that, I mean,
Okay.
that's my thought on it.
One thought that I just had, and we can talk about it more later too, is like if someone is experiencing symptoms, we could utilize the Binax Now that we have for
Okay.
just a rapid antigen test,
Oh,
Good idea.
if people aren't opposed to that. We could offer it.
I think
that's a good idea.
Okay.
I'm wondering if we should, publicize that so they would come early, not to hold the
Yeah.
meeting up if there's a number of people who are concerned and want to have the rapid. I mean, I
Okay.
don't know how long it takes. Is it
It takes
rapid?
15 minutes.
Okay,
In my experience, any positive that comes back comes back in the first 5 minutes.
okay.
I just had a
Um,
test this morning. It took 5 minutes. I got a call back from
Yeah.
CVS because I'm traveling this weekend, so I had to get one. And yeah, like 5 minutes.
Great.
Yeah. I think that being said, like if it comes back positive and then they are refusing to leave, which I don't think most people would, but like what are we gonna do about that is more of a concern.
We probably need to work with public safety on that.
Yeah.
Okay. I can reach out.
Okay. Safdar?
The only thing I want to add to that is, if they are negative, but they still have symptoms, I think in that situation, the mask should not be the choice. Like we're going to mandate, we're going to, wherever you sit, even if you need to keep that mask on if you have any sort of active symptoms, even if you test negative on an antigen test. I think that will be very important. Like that to me is going to have to be an absolute. And I think the other thing, as we advertise, if we do take the route of testing with Binax, I think the most important thing to remember is that it's okay if they have minor symptoms, but if they have a fever and aches, they shouldn't come. So this is for,
Right.
and it's a little hard to define. It's something we struggle with in clinical work all the time. And as Heather, Taylor, and Nancy can attest to, is mild versus moderate symptoms. It's not black and white, but I think it should be also very clear that this is only people for minor symptoms that will do a
Like,
Binax antigen.
Even COVID aside, we tell people to stay home if they have a fever, that's like cut and dry.
Mm-hmm. That's an excellent point. Yeah.
Okay, outside of a motion regarding mandating masks and 6 feet apart at town meeting, Jim, Heather, Taylor. Do you need anything else from Jay's perspective?
I do not. They're very
No.
helpful. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Great. So thank you, Jay, for joining. That was very helpful. And I'm going to make a motion that the Board of Health supports doing a mask mandate for the November 1st special town meeting, given the volume of residents and attendees and the close proximity to people coming in and out of Trotter.
I second the motion and vote aye.
I vote aye.
Okay, Malinowski, aye. So that passes unanimously. Okay, thank you very much, Jim and Jay. Have a great
Thank
rest of
you.
the day.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
very
coming.
much.
Bye-bye.
If I could just make one more comment on that.
Oh, go ahead.
People ignore signs, which is human nature. So what I'd like to do is I'll come up with some folks that'll greet people in the corridor outside, maybe take a look at the sign, just to direct them to the sign, not to ask the questions. Second thing, Taylor, I'll follow up with you as to what kind of support you need outside to be able to do this outside the gym, an enclosure and privacy, power, heat, those kind of logistical issues.
Okay, great.
We'll be able to address that. And then we'll come up with a separate waiting area for people out there. We have plenty of space to do that. I'll just work out, who knows, on November 1st, it could be 70 degrees, it could be, 45.
Right.
We'll work all that out. So excellent.
Yep.
And I'll
Sounds
circle
great.
back, on language, who should I circle back with on the language?
Okay.
Did you, Taylor, circle back with you on the language for the signs?
Heather
me.
and Taylor? The
That's right.
verbiage on the signs.
Sure.
Okay, will do. Excellent.
Thanks,
Thank you very
Jim.
much.
Thank
Thank
you.
Have a
you.
great day. Bye now.
Bye. So given the time that we're at and that we're talking about fall town meeting, I'm just going to go to 5B because we do need to vote on that today. So I'm going to pull up my screen. And what I did was you all have the Excel version of the numbers, but this is essentially what it will look like in the warrant if we vote on this today. And I apologize for changing the date of this meeting, but the selectmen are closing the warrant Tuesday night, and I wanted to give enough time for this to get actually into the warrant. So that's why I had to move the meeting. So I apologize for that. So essentially the difference, and this includes both the nurse and the director's incremental salary and benefits from November 1st to June 30th. So the salary difference is 69,000, and then the insurance difference is roughly 30,400 for a total of 99,000. Now, the way I understand how the CARES funding works is that once we vote, then it's considered budgeted. And that's why these numbers are as of November 1st. I've been getting some questions as to why we can't budget it starting January 1st. So I'm going with this until unless accounting tells me otherwise. In terms, I don't want to go to town meeting and go from January 1st and then we don't have 2 months worth of coverage, right? So this is all in for the two positions. I'll open it up to the board for comments.
I think it looks great. I don't see any issues with this. Thank you so much. And it's very clear to comprehend because I'm not always great. I'm not a numbers person. So looks good.
Okay. Safdar?
Yeah, I agree with Nancy.
Okay.
Not being a finance person, this looks
Oh my God.
to understand
Okay.
and explain and validate as well, which is what we're
Okay,
doing.
great. So, and just so you know, the reason why there's no total at the bottom of the benefits is because this is like 2 out of 10 detailed lines. And so I didn't want to mess with the total budget on the benefits and I didn't want to muddy the water. So I just tried to call out exactly what was changing. So is there a motion to, and I put in the summary too. I just simple, we use CARES funding for the beginning of the year. This is for the incremental costs for for FY '21. So just
Yeah, I
want to
like
make
the
sure.
red too, so it,
Okay.
you know.
Okay, great. So is there a motion to accept Article 4 as presented for Fall Town Meeting, resulting in an increase to, oh, you know what? This has to be FY
I see
'21.
I see an error in the math.
Yep. In the math?
got
Oh,
it.
gosh, what did I do?
It
Okay.
Is to me, that in that top quadrant, original vote 202, and then proposed amount, you have 201, and then other charges, you have 70. Shouldn't that be 272, not 252?
Yep, you know what? I didn't update that one. Thank you. Let me do that quickly before I move on here. 201. Thank you, Heather. So it should be 271, 915,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
And I will go back and double check the math, but the amount is the 99,682, and that ties out to what I had on the Excel sheet. Yep. Okay, so
Yes, okay.
So is there a motion to accept Article 4 as presented here to increase the FY '22 budget by $99,682, $69,223 coming from the Board of Health budget, and the $30,458 from the benefits budget.
So you're not making the motion. You want one of us to.
Yeah, so if you can just say so moved.
So moved.
Okay, thanks. Just because I put
Do
the
I have
data
to say
together.
that whole thing?
Okay, is there a second?
I second.
Okay, Nancy,
Yes, I third and I vote
Safter.
aye.
I vote
Doctor?
aye. I vote
okay,
aye.
Malinowski is aye. So that passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay. And I know that we have, I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second. I know that we have Diane Legier here from, and I hope I'm saying her name right, from the Shared Service Grant. So I think there's probably 2 items, if you don't mind going out of order on those. On 3D, if there's an update on Framingham Road, and then on 8B for the FDA grant. So if we can just bring her over just in case she has somewhere else to pop off to, that we don't tie her up.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you for coming.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm actually without video because I'm actually in Southborough doing inspections today.
Perfect.
So
Welcome.
I'm just taking a break from inspections.
Okay, great. So I guess, you know, Heather and Diane, if you have an update on 3D, which is the 150 Framingham
150
Road.
Framingham Road. I think
Mhm.
Diane, if she's here, that'd be great for
Okay.
150
So-
Framingham update.
So not much of an update. The owner of the property has retained an attorney, which means that everything I do moving forward goes through that attorney. It's attorney R. Michael Brown. He's out of Southborough. He's been terrific to deal with. We've spoken a couple times now. It's my understanding that the owner is moving forward with the Title V inspection as requested. He has made some improvements. We are scheduled by statute to go back for a follow-up sometime next week, and Heather and I will coordinate with Building and Fire on that to get that reinspection taken care of. There not much else. The attorney was in full agreement that we've been overly generous and that we're working with his client, and that everything we've requested is well within our legal, well within our ability as a board to require per the state sanitary code.
Great.
Okay, great. So it sounds like it's moving in the right direction.
It is. I think the big question for everyone involved at this point is if the restaurant will be able to reopen And that's really pending the outcome of the Title V and an engineer's review of those plans, because that we can certainly make some variances regarding the restaurant, but until they have an adequate sewage system, they will not be able to operate as a restaurant.
Got it. Great. Nancy or Safdar, any questions on that topic?
No, it sounds like they
Okay.
have everything going forward, so.
No, that's great. Thank you, Diane. Heather, anything to add on that?
No,
Okay, perfect. Okay, and then I'm just gonna flip over to FDA grants because I
right,
know
right.
that
'Cause
Diane
Diane,
had,
our food inspector, yes,
Yeah.
is
okay, so,
introduced us to this, but let me just update where we are for
Perfect.
Southborough. This is a new model, I guess, in funding from the FDA with flexible retail food grants. And this can be done individually and regionally. So the first step for Southborough, and I can apply this week, is the individual town application for FDA funding, really basically to kind of do a self-assessment and an improvement plan to see where we are and to see where we would like to go with retail food establishments. And I checked with Paul, this hasn't been done ever before in Southborough. So this would be kind of the first step. And then once we're in as a step and we get at least 3 towns regionally, Diane can mention that. Also, I went to a conference last week where I met our kind of FDA rep for this region. And Diane, if you want to talk about the potential for the regional, if we have 3 towns.
Sure. So the regional grant is an opportunity to just supplement the public health excellence grant, and that we can apply for up to $100,000 per year for the next 3 years. And the purpose of that is to supplement the 3 towns' ability to implement the FDA's 9 retail program standards, which really focus on safety at every level of food service. And it's really from the regulatory processes that we're using, emergency management plans, inspections, having uniform inspectional services throughout our regional group, how we handle foodborne illnesses, preparedness and response on that, compliance and enforcement. So the first step, as Heather mentioned, was to apply each town individually for self-assessments, and then for us as a region to work to implement, once those assessments are done, to implement these standards. And our focus, our proposed focus would be really to work on education and outreach, as is common in many municipalities throughout the state. Food service programs have maybe been overlooked a little bit, and this is an opportunity for us to work together, get some great funding in place, bring in an outside auditor. We would contract a service to come in and audit each of the departments, and then implement their recommendations along with educational programs and testing programs for all of our businesses.
great, thank you. Safdar and Nancy, any questions on that?
No,
No, thank you for the thorough explanation.
yeah, thank you.
I do have one question on kind of the difference between the resources that would need to come from Southborough specifically, Diane, on the individual versus the regional.
There's
So
no resources that, as far as I understand, Diane, right, this is applying for resources.
I mean, so the individual grant is a really small grant. That's it's to do a self-assessment of the food program in Southborough. And I guess as your food person, I would work with your director, Heather.
Okay.
to do a self-assessment of each of those 9 program standards. And that's just the base starting point. And the grant does provide funding for the staffing, the time required for that. So that wouldn't be taken out of the regional time. This is in addition to. So
Okay.
this would be no drain in any way on the town. It would all be in addition to funds that are already there.
Got it. Okay, that was my question. Thank you. So is it helpful if we do a motion for the individual application for the self-assessment piece, as well as to authorize, I assume it's you, Diane, for the regional application?
Correct.
Okay, so are we ready to vote on that, you think? Okay,
Sure.
so I move to authorize Dr. Alker to apply for the individual FDA grant for Southborough for the self-assessment. And I authorize Diane Legier to include Southborough as part of the regional application for the FDA grant. Is there a second?
I second, and this is Sacco, vote aye.
I vote aye.
Okay, and Malinowski, aye. Great, thank you. I don't think there was anything else on the agenda for Diane. Okay, so Diane, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
We hope you
Thank
enjoy your
you.
day in Southborough.
Thanks so much. Take care.
All right, bye-bye. Okay, I'm gonna go back to the top of the agenda and take care of the minutes from September 9th.
Mhm.
So there were 2 versions circulated. One was the original, and then the second one was the updates that I had made. Any other changes to the September 9th?
Nope.
Okay. So I move that we accept the September 9th minutes as edited by Chelsea.
I second the motion, and Sacco votes aye.
Okay.
I vote aye.
Okay, Malinowski, aye. Thank you. Okay. And I think I just want to take care of the meeting schedule, and then I'll go back to director's report, because does anybody have a hard stop at noon? I just want to be
No.
cognizant if people have something. Okay. So 6A, the public forum for the presentation of Dr. Fazens' report. So unfortunately, there was
Yeah.
I had scheduled it for the Algonquin item, the same night as the Algonquin parent-teacher conferences. And then I checked back with him to see if he could do the 18th, the 20th, or the 21st. And I think Safdar was not available for the 20th. Dr. Fazen wasn't available for the 18th. So that's where we landed on the 21st. And
Okay.
it sounds like Nancy can't do the 21st. So
Yeah.
I do think that this is extremely important to
Sure,
do
that's
before fall
fine.
town meeting.
Yep.
So I don't know what I don't know what else to do.
Don't worry about it. It's always hard when there's, 3 of
So
us.
it will be taped, Nancy.
Yeah, that's great.
And on my next agenda item, I'll kind of explain how I think this will play into fall town meeting, and you'll have another go at it when we meet to finalize the town meeting presentation.
Okay.
So if you're okay with that, we will, if Safdar and I are there, we'll have a quorum at least. And I mean, most of it is going to be, it's really an opportunity for, all the stakeholders to listen to what the report was, and then
Absolutely.
the public to have questions. So if you have questions before the meeting, if you want to send them in, then we can ask them at the
Okay.
meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. I mean, that's
Okay.
going to happen with all of us at some point. So
I know.
I'm sure.
Okay.
The one thing I can
Um,
check on, the reason I said no to October 20th was because on the school calendar, that has the regional school committee meeting.
Yeah.
But then yesterday, Heather and Taylor, did they not say it was October 13th, the regional school committee meeting? So I wonder if, there might be a chance, Nancy, to do it on the 20th so you can attend. Let me,
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure what they said.
I
Double check.
thought that they said it was the 13th, but I can confirm that.
Oh, that'd be
Okay.
great.
I'll just
That would be good.
give me a day and I'll confirm when the actual regional school committee meeting
Okay.
is. Because
Okay, and I had not asked Dr. Fazen if the 20th worked, because I didn't think that was
Okay.
gonna work. I just offered the 18th and the 21st. So I will keep the 21st unless I hear from you, Safdar, on that.
Yeah, let me see
Okay.
if we can do that.
Oh, I
Okay.
appreciate that.
One of
Thank you.
one of the pieces is wrong, whether it was what we said
What
yesterday,
they
or
said,
whether
yeah.
the website is wrong for the regional school committee meeting. So
All right, well,
Right.
thank you. I really appreciate that.
This says the
Um,
regional school committee meeting is the 12th, the 20th, excuse me. But the Southborough meeting is October 13th.
Okay, that's cool.
So I don't think I need to be there at the Southborough one. I think I need to be there at the regional. So let me verify with Greg, and I can, and Mary Ellen, I'll get back to you, because that would be great, because that's what I have on my calendar too, is the 20th. All right.
Okay. All right, thank you. Next is prepare and finalize town meeting presentation. So I just want to give you a quick update on this morning's Selectmen's meeting, that the warrant was closed. There was some discussion around the largest article that's getting brought to town meeting, which is the downtown initiative. So that will be further discussed on Tuesday. So the warrant is set. We have a placeholder in the warrant. And I think the selectmen need to make a decision Tuesday night on a final decision if we're hosting the fall town meeting. So I wouldn't say that that's like completely set in stone, because we have not signed the warrant yet. So that is Tuesday night. But what I were challenged a little bit on a 3-member board where we cannot work on a presentation outside of a meeting. So I know, Safdar, that you had offered to help with that. So what I was hoping to do, and Nancy, please do not feel obligated to sit through a public meeting working session if you're not available. But I would like to take a first pass with at least Safdar and Nancy. If you're available, that's great. If you don't want to, and you just want to look at the final, that's fine. We just have to do it in an open session. That's just the nature of the 3-person board. So if we can get a first draft done before Dr. Fazens' report or presentation, and then have a meeting, the subsequent Tuesday after that meeting to finalize the report, make any tweaks based on what he presents, and then do that before fall town meeting. That's kind of what I'm thinking in my head, but I'm open to suggestions.
No, I think that sounds perfect,
I
honestly.
think that's fine by me too.
Okay. So Safdar, I know Tuesdays work for you. Tuesdays work for me. I just put on here the 5th, or we could do the 12th. I wasn't sure that at the time. I thought Dr. Fazens' report was going to be the 14th. So
Right.
is there a Tuesday that works well for you?
I'm pretty open to either Tuesday, probably just after 10:30, if that's okay.
Okay.
Or very early in the morning is fine too, if you're up for like a 7 a.m. to 8 or
Okay.
8:30 working session as
Sure.
well.
That's fine. Okay, so then let's shoot for the 12th then. And what I was thinking is we could come with some ideas, kind of. I don't think we need many slides. I think a few would be relevant. Is there a particular topic that you kind of want to take a first shot at to bring to the 12th at a working session?
So I think, as we look, and I'm assuming as we get these funds approved, the more evidence we can have of all the work that Heather and Taylor do,
Right.
beyond the pandemic is what's most important.
Yes.
So what I can definitely bring to the table is Heather and Taylor are both on the Northborough Southborough Substance Use Prevention Coalition, and really are going to be assets to us as we look at our whole public health picture. So we can talk about the prevalence of substance use and how important it is to have talent like Heather and Taylor available to our town.
Okay. Okay,
So
great.
that's one, I think, item that people often overlook.
Yeah, right. I also thought that we could have a slide on like what we're not doing that we absolutely should be doing, right? Like, because if you look at the list of what health departments could do, I don't know that you would ever have
Oh, I know.
the amount of staff, right? So it's more of, what aren't we getting to that we should be. I think that needs to be highlighted. So maybe I can work with Heather and Taylor on that before the 12th. Okay. Okay.
And
then
it's
we can
awful to say, but like with the numbers rising and things, I mean, I think sadly, that's going to help us probably with getting this approved, because now is not the time to be cutting back on public health.
Right. Right. I also think that we need to advertise for the Dr. Fazen public forum
Okay.
so that people watch that before they go to town meeting. Because I also think, as you know, after reading through his report, you know, the advantage that we've seen out of the shared service grant. I mean, we just heard Diane, we wouldn't have Diane as an asset to the town if we didn't have the shared service grant. So I do think that, you know, over the next, you know, year or so, we need to formalize what our long-term plan is. And I think we need to tell the residents that, right? And so that's why I want to make sure that we have time after Dr. Fazen's, you know, public Q&A, that if there are questions from the public that we think would be valuable to add into this, you know, this presentation, you know, at a high level, right, for town meeting, that we do that, and that the public has the opportunity to see, you know, the investment that this board made in having him do that report.
Great. Yep.
So Taylor, can you put his report on the website? Do we have it electronically yet? We don't have it
I don't think
electronically.
so.
Okay, so we need to get that so that we can, I also think that we should be sending it to all the people that he interviewed so that they can see the final product.
Yeah.
So I know that he listed kind of the titles of that, but I think, you know, there's certain boards and committees that should definitely, even if those individuals weren't interviewed, if somebody on their committee was, that we should get that out. So let me reach out to him and see if we can get it electronically to put on the website. And then Taylor, if you wouldn't mind putting this, you know, trying to push out that this forum is happening on social media.
Yep.
That would be great.
Would that include, like, I don't know how you guys do it now. I remember when my kids were little, there was like the Thursday packet or whatever that went to all the school,
Yeah,
like information.
We
we can put it in the backpack.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
the backpack. Okay.
Yeah. It's electronic now, but
Yeah.
it goes out every Thursday.
I'm dating myself. Ours were paper.
So then can we just book, so if we book our final report and we could do our regular monthly meeting on the same day, I think that would probably make the most sense. So I'm thinking October 26th.
Let me just, you know, I gotta run and see.
Okay,
So I can do it. We'll do the electronic backpack, which if you don't mind giving me the contact for that person.
sure.
We could put it on the Twitter. I could post it on some Facebook groups myself or out, and we
Yeah.
could do like a news flash on the website.
Perfect. That's great.
So the 26th should work. My schedule doesn't go until then, but I'll request it off when I go in
Okay.
tomorrow on the
Okay,
draft.
so that will be our final
Okay.
report or presentation and our regular monthly meeting.
Okay.
And then Falltown meetings on the 11th. And I got an email right before the meeting this morning requesting a joint meeting between Board of Selectmen and Advisory to review the warrant next Thursday night. And all proponents are going to be invited to present their articles. I don't know what your availability is for next Thursday night, but we can host a meeting. And that's our opportunity to essentially pitch to Selectmen and Advisory on the article that we just voted on.
Falltown meeting is the first, or
The first.
The first, yep, and then
And
next,
next Thursday, the October 7th.
yes. At probably 7 PM. I don't know that I got a time. I just read it super quick before I jumped on this. So that would be a joint meeting for Advisory and Selectmen to take a position or to hear from proponents and potentially take a position on articles. So that, I will be at, but if one of you wants to join, then we'll just post, which is totally fine. And if you can attend, that would be wonderful. If you can't, I totally understand.
What time is it at?
It's probably at 7.
Okay. Let
But
me
that- I mean,
see.
I don't know the order that they're gonna take the articles in, and so if there's other articles that, like we're Article 4, the downtown's last, but that they may shift it around, so I can try to find out what the ordering is, Nancy. But I think in any case, I'll
Okay.
post, and you can always cancel it if you can't make it, so we could just leave it open like that.
That might be a good idea, because I might try to go after work.
Perfect. So you know what? We'll post, once I get confirmation, Barbara, that's actually the date that it's happening, because I know they were sending around availability. Then I will let you know, and we can just, post for that.
Okay.
Okay. So then, do we want to book our November and our December regular meeting so that we have, is that easier for you, Nancy, to know when it is?
Yes, yeah, and then I
Okay.
can just request it off.
Okay, so November, the week of Thanksgiving is probably the week of the 22nd. Or we could go into the following week. I'm trying to keep it like a month apart. Does anybody have a
I'm
preference on
around
that?
the week of Thanksgiving.
Okay, it's after. All right,
I'm
so
around the week
let's,
of Thanksgiving as well.
so let's do 11/23. And does 10 work, or was it 11 that's better? I can't remember what.
10:30 or after, so 10:30.
10:30, okay, 10:30 good,
works for
Nancy?
Nancy, yeah, if it works for everybody else, we'll do 10:30.
Let's do
I
10:30.
probably won't be there, but that's fine.
With
On the 23rd,
one?
Correct.
okay.
Sorry.
And then,
My flight lands at 10:40, so. I
do you want
could
to do
be-
11? Or
I'm sorry, my screen was frozen. So what's the date?
the 11/23?
11/23. Okay. I'm wide open that week because that's my holiday off. I'm on all through Christmas, so I
Oh.
should be able to have no issue with that.
And I can meet later too. I can meet later if needed.
Do you want to do 12 on that day,
Taylor, yeah.
Taylor?
Sure.
That would be
Does that-
great.
Does that give you enough time? Okay, so let's do, so we'll do 10:30 on the 10/26, we'll do 12 on 11/23. And then, Nancy, I'm guessing the week of Christmas is not good for you, or is it the week after Christmas?
Well, probably no, because I'll be on like Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, the day
Got it.
after. So actually, it's probably a good week because I'm on when everybody's home having fun.
When
which is
everybody's home, right?
fine.
So do you want to do 12/21?
Sure.
All right,
And
and obviously if
we'll-
something, this is booking a little bit further out,
No,
but,
but that's
I'll-
good. That's
okay.
good.
All right, so you want to do 10:30 on that one? Does that work for everyone?
Sure. Is October 26th, 10 or 10:30?
10:30.
10:30.
Okay. All right, thank you. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure we got through that. Okay, back to 3, I think that was all I needed to say on the meetings. So back to 3B, the community survey update. Taylor, do you want to give just where
Sure.
you're at with that?
So I closed it out last week. We got 300 people that responded, which I think is great. The top 3 answers were COVID, mental health, and tick-borne illness. So we'll probably put together something for Heritage Day focusing on those 3 topics.
Okay, great. So you're gonna have a tent at Heritage Day
Yes,
or table?
table.
Great. Okay, so maybe,
what-
maybe that would be another slide for the
Yeah.
presentation too on resident feedback, Taylor, so maybe you and I can work on a draft slide
Sure.
related to that. Okay. Questions on that?
Taylor, do you need a list of resources and stuff for mental health
I'm
referral?
actually
Sure.
meeting with Sarah Cassell tomorrow, but anything that you have, if you already have something prepared, I would gladly take it from you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not in Southborough and Northborough, but there's a lot of things in surrounding towns that we can refer people to. So I'll ask-
Awesome. Yeah.
Right.
If you could forward that to me, I'd appreciate it.
And we should probably have something on the referral service, the William James interface.
Right. Okay, so 3C, the shared service resources. Heather, do you want to give an update on that?
Okay, so as we said before, the food and housing inspector, Diane, is up and running. We've met. She's really getting through all our food establishments. And the shared serving for nurses is Erin Shanahan has been secured by our vendor Van A to cover Boylston, Northborough and Southborough. So she was new to public health. We did meet her last week. She is trained from September 1st up to last week. And last week she took one case, but she was still sort of kind of up and running, getting settled. Our interest now is in case investigation and communicable diseases, so that can be done remotely. She's not available early morning for our school testing, which I'll talk about later on the agenda with the school system. But she, this week we haven't had a ton of cases, but she is, I think, up and running.
We have had quite a few cases today that I have sent her.
Exactly, right, but those haven't happened yet that she did them,
Right.
but she did one earlier in the week. Yep, and so we'll see how that goes.
Great, thank you. Nancy, any questions on the shared service resources?
Nope, not at all. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
All right, great, thank you. So the communication intern?
So I think we had mentioned this back before we had originally posted this, and then I had posted it with the Academic Public Health Volunteer Corps, and I had a limited number of applicants, and I decided to post it in UMass through the MPH program. So I have an MPH student who's going to be filling her practicum requirements. And she, Amanda Cronin, is a vet actually in Worcester. And she's done most of her coursework already for the MPH program. And this is her practicum piece. And she is set to begin next week through December. And we had, I think, months ago, seen the sort of description and RFP that we had put for this position. And basically what I've talked to her about doing in specific for our communications is to, she has already read the social media toolkit put together by the Academic Public Health Volunteer Corps. And she will be starting a Facebook page for our, right now we have police and fire, but we're going to start a Facebook page for our department. And she will be also helping with the website, keeping that up to date. And she will be looking at doing an electronic communication to our residents who subscribe. We would offer it under subscription if you wanted to get e-newsletter from our department. And she has a lot of talents. I've spoken to her a couple of times. She'll be mainly working with me Tuesday remotely, about 4 hours a week. And I think with our small department, that'll be adequate.
So is there any contract with this person?
Let me double check with the MPH program. I have, because with Walden, I had to sign with Walden a
Yeah.
contract. And the student says it's more a scope of project that I have reviewed with her. But in terms of, I don't know whether we have to sign anything with UMass, but that's a good question.
Yeah.
The student says no. And I know that our program director from the MPH I've spoken with, and she recommended to have the student come. So she knows that the student is coming, and this program director is usually pretty good at saying, hey, you need to do this. she didn't, but I can double check with her again that there's not a different agreement.
Yeah, because I would think that we would, and what kind of access, like, does she need any access to anything? I think, okay, so she's,
Well, she'll need access to the website, right?
so, yeah, but she's not gonna be making changes on the website, right? Like, she's not gonna have Taylor access to the website.
I
Right.
think potentially it would be helpful if she had Taylor access to the website. Yes.
So I think we probably need to talk to Jay about that,
Okay.
Jay Montillo. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I just don't know that.
I mean,
that-
unless we, I want to talk about, I mean, she can write content, or.
Yeah, and then Taylor
Yeah,
can
and
put
I
it
could
up
do it.
there.
Do it. I mean, I guess
Yeah.
same for the Facebook account. I mean, that's up to us if we want to do it that way.
Well, I guess I feel a little bit differently about a social media account than the town website account. I don't know if
Okay,
others
got it.
feel differently. I mean, I think it's probably something we should just run by Jay
Gotcha.
and see. I just want to make sure we don't give out, that we're not
Okay.
giving
Yeah,
access.
yeah.
And that,
Yep.
if she's acting on the town's behalf, I think there needs to be some sort of approval from, yourself or Taylor.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think the content would always be approved.
Yeah.
It's a question of, actual access.
Yeah, so we can take this offline. Nancy or
Okay.
Saftard, any questions on that?
No.
Okay. Thank you, Heather. Okay. Vaccines, number 7. And you should have received 2 draft contracts this morning from Heather for administrative staff to help with any COVID vaccine boosters that would be CARES reimbursed through 12/31. So Heather, I don't know if you want to add anything.
So these, so we tentatively are scheduling 4 COVID vaccine booster clinics at the senior center. As you know, right now, only Pfizer is approved for booster dosing, but I would say between now and December, there's also potential for, if Moderna has booster, that would potentially be something we would do as well. And that was also at Colonial Gardens was the Moderna. We would offer them boosters on site. And then I guess as discussion, 5 to 11-year-olds potentially. So this is administrative staff for any of the, it's not just booster, but any of the COVID vaccination we would want to do between now and December. We, both these women were hired by collaborative regional towns for the Westboro Clinic. So they both have experience in the color software and worked that clinic before. So that would be super helpful, especially if we have vaccinators who aren't quite as comfortable in color, that we have administrative staff on site who are familiar with the color software.
So any questions on these 2?
Well, just can we, open it up to others who haven't gotten their first vaccine yet when we do the, 5 to 11? So, we do still have a number of adolescents and adults, in fact, older adults that haven't even received a single dose. So can we open it up to anyone?
In regards to boosters or?
Just in general,
when we're
first
having
shot
a-
or boosters. Yeah,
to have
for those who may not have even gotten their first vaccine yet, that small number that hasn't gotten their first vaccine.
Yeah, so I can
Yeah.
add, so the problem with the software is when you make a clinic, you have to make a clinic for either boosters or first dose. So I can certainly make a small clinic at the same
Right.
time for first dose and
Right.
advertise that as well.
Right. I think a Pfizer order has been put in through the 4 town collaborative by Northborough for Pfizer. So the order is in, and when we find out when we get the vaccine, maybe next week, when we find out we get the vaccine, we have the tentative planning for the 4 booster clinics at Senior Center, but we are also planning, we have homebound residents. So as soon as we kind of when we know the date for receiving vaccine, we're going to schedule that as well for homebound residents, and potentially for if there are Southborough first responders or employees looking for booster vaccine. It would be a small group, kind of like you said, if we have any, traction on first dosing, we would certainly set that up as well.
Yeah. I can advertise that, no problem.
We can advertise, yeah.
I did have one question about the contracts. Heather, are we paying the same rate that they were hired from the other towns for?
Correct.
Okay. Okay,
Exactly. That's how we did the regional, because everyone got the same rate through.
got it. Okay. And we also have 2 other admin contractors who are on through the end of this
December.
year as well. So this will be 4 people. So the only thing that we need to make sure we do, and Heather, I can work with you on offline with this if everyone's okay with that, is that we need to get to a number of to Carla before 10/29 of expected expense
Okay,
for
by
anything
10/29.
related to CARES.
Okay.
Okay, that doesn't, that it just means that the state wants us to forecast the amount that we're going to spend through the end of the year.
Mhm.
So I think we just need to figure out, what is the potential expense. So we just
Okay.
need to make sure we do that.
I
Okay.
think
Good, that's good.
there's a couple questions, like just if when Moderna gets approved, and then if we end up doing clinics
to
for 5 to
11.
12, that would be like a kind of up in the air at that point. That's the only things that I foresee, but
I think we
Correct.
just need to do our best guess at
Right.
if we were to get both scenarios, what
Okay.
would that look like? And then, I think it's better to go, big and then have it be less than what it is. Like, I don't know
Right.
what they're gonna do if it ends up being
Right.
less, but I would rather
Right.
not sell ourselves short on that. Okay,
okay.
so,
And also
Go ahead.
on those contracts, right, they're very similar to the ones that we already have 2 in place. And I didn't reach Vanessa this morning. The queries may still be in process, that these 2 were both employed for the recent clinics by other towns, but we have our own Southborough queries in process. So if that
Okay.
would be, I
Okay.
haven't heard.
so I move to accept the contracts for Marge Achilles and Tracy McGrath for temporary admin support for COVID vaccines or boosters through 12/31/21, subject to queries.
I second the motion and vote aye, Sacco.
I vote aye, Medina.
Malinowski, aye. Thank you. And I know we touched on the 5 to 11
Right.
COVID vaccines. And is there anything else that you wanted to add to that?
I would be interested in Safdar if he had a read on local pediatricians potentially accessing and using vaccine for this group.
So I think right now the storage has been, so we at our clinic have it because we have a hospital system that supplies us with our COVID-19 vaccine. So we've been giving it to 12 to 12 and above in our group. So I have my contacts, and I'd be happy to reach out to Reliant and some of the major players in our area and see what their plans are. So I would be happy to do that to give you a gauge on what's going on. I think any load we can take off of the busy primary care practices and doing it would offer our families a great resource to get their children vaccinated. So I think even if they do have it, it will be limited. And I think we can really offer this huge service to our families. 5 to 11.
And Safdar, has there been any talk on the school side of supporting a clinic, or would this probably be with this board?
I think this board at this point.
Okay.
Any support.
This board or the 4, perhaps the 4-town regional.
Yeah, right. Okay. All right. So maybe this is something that we can just keep on the 4 towns radar too. Heather, I know we're not scheduled to meet until December, but hopefully, you know, if something comes up regarding this, then we'll be
Right.
able to,
Right.
Um,
And
you know,
as folks know, with the 5 to 11, it's sort of potentially different space and staffing requirements than what we've been doing. So,
right, okay, excellent. The flu clinic is scheduled for 10:13.
Yep,
Is that right?
10:13, the morning we'll do seniors. And then in the afternoon, we'll open it up to town employees and other residents of Southborough that are interested. Right now, we have about a little under 200 people signed up, and I have the availability to vaccinate 280 people.
Great.
Great, that's awesome. Okay,
I'll probably next week, ask if Beth Mello from my Southborough would be willing to post it again, and probably send like another reminder to town employees to sign up, and post it on, like, maybe do like another email blast in the town website.
great,
and we may at the site October 13th have some of these clerks that we're appointing there to register folks for the subsequent
good.
booster
COVID
clinics,
boosters. Mhm.
COVID booster clinics.
and that would be through Color?
It would be.
Okay,
So the platform was originally used for only COVID, and this year it expanded for flu as well.
Okay.
So all of our vaccines that we're eligible to administer go through Color this year.
Okay,
And it works out great because it goes right to the state system automatically. We don't have to hand type anything.
got it. That's good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any questions about the flu vaccine clinic?
Nope.
All right, the school COVID update. Heather?
So right now there are a number of cases at the high school. Currently there, yesterday's meeting, they mentioned 15 cases, I believe. Almost all of them are Northborough residents, but there is a large group at the high school. Most of these cases are vaccinated, but not all of them. I believe 10 of the 15 were vaccinated. The pool testing, the state changed vendors, but the plan was to have testing at the school for the pool testing this Friday for high school only, right? Or maybe staff and high school only as sort of a trial run, and then be getting it into the pool testing for the entire district.
Do you know if it's going to be send home tests, or are they going to be done at school?
I believe they're sent home.
Send
Okay.
home. There are send home tests.
Okay.
Send home test.
Yeah, but I think it's going to still be a couple weeks till that's up and running for the school district as a whole.
Do you know what kind of consent percentages we have at the schools? Because I know that was not as high as kind of everybody expected it to be last year. And, you know, is there anything that this board can do to encourage people to, you know, the awareness of it or anything like that?
I don't know the answer to that, but I could probably find out and get back to you.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah,
you.
I mean, last year, Steph, are we gonna do, we'd done the strongly recommended for athletes, so that got sort of higher yield in the high school.
I think that the struggle this year will be is a number of vaccinated people may opt out of the
Right.
testing. I think we really have to push that we also would like vaccinated people to be tested, especially at the high school level, to be
Yeah.
tested. But I think, you know, the major messaging is that this is the way to keep school open full time without disruption. Like this is a key mitigation factor in avoiding disruptions in school, which is something nobody wants. So.
Right. And speaking of keeping school open and kids in school, the test and stay program, I think I mentioned that last time, Nancy. They have the state, DESE did a test and stay program, which is for those basically unvaccinated. So hence those who are quarantined to home have an option to test each morning prior to school for the 7 days. We were,
Oh,
yes, currently, although it's resource intensive, the school nurses with Taylor and other assistants are doing them in the schools. But at that point, the student has already been on the bus that morning, and the intensive staff. The plan going forward is to set up a regional testing site for the students in this program.
okay.
And it would be before school, like 6 to 9 in the morning. So the latest plan is the park in Northborough. There's a large parking lot. Michelle McAfee on Route 135.
Oh, yeah, where they have
9,
lacrosse fields and
9.
stuff, yeah.
Yeah, so that was a plan discussed last night at the MAT, is to have students be tested with their families and wait in the car. And then with a negative test, then they can take the bus or go directly to school.
This is it.
That sounds good. I mean, I think any measures to keep kids in school is worth doing.
Right, the other
Yeah.
option is quarantine at home, exactly. And
I
the
can
school
speak
can
to
get
that
some-
it is working, and you know, it's much better than having a child be home with you
Right.
necessarily. So
I wouldn't have
I-
survived homeschooling.
I fully appreciate the fact that we're doing this program, and I think there's a huge
Right.
value to the community on this one.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
That's-
I'm gonna go down to number 8. I'm actually gonna skip over A. I think after talking to Heather, I think with the shared service nurse, I think we're covered in terms of through
Okay.
the end of the year. So I think we're good on
I
that one.
think so too. We were thinking that too. Taylor and I
Yeah.
were thinking that as well.
Okay, so I'm good on that one. And then for C, so just to give Nancy and Safdar a little bit of background on this one, I circulated, or I had Barbara circulate a draft letter to the community. I'm hearing from residents that, you know, Board of Health weighed in on this or made a decision on this, and there are items that we haven't discussed and that I wasn't actually aware of in some cases. So I just think it's our responsibility to make sure that, you know, people who work for the town, the school system, you know, leaders of our sports leagues in town understand that we have an elected Board of Health who make policy decisions for the town, and we oversee employees who, you know, execute on those decisions and are involved in, you know, making sure that people are following the rules, right? Like if there's a quarantine issue or a quarantine question, contact tracing question, obviously they're going to call the health department and they're going to be directed to either the school guidance, if it's, you know, if that's relevant, the state guidance, if that's relevant, and, you know, not going to deviate kind of what is in front of them. And if it was a case that a policy decision needed to be made, then it would be brought to this board. So I can pull up the draft letter. But I want to be clear that this is like to address events that are happening in town. This is not for, you know, businesses that have questions related to, you know, food and housing and that kind of thing. Like, this is specifically for, you know, given what's going on with COVID, if you have a question, you know, reach out to see kind of what the best path is. And I think it's up to Heather and I to figure out if it just can be a question that's answered, or if it really does need to come before the board, and to cut out, you know, things coming up saying that the Board of Health made this decision when that's not what was happening.
Okay.
So that's kind of the backstory in that. And, you know, it wasn't necessarily anything that probably would have come across your email as of yet. I think it was just related to some of the activities that I personally am involved with.
Okay. This looks great.
And I tried to just stick to,
Mhm.
I understand that we have a messaging issue for people understanding the breadth of what the health department covers. But this was kind of in response, just to make sure that, you know, lacrosse and football and soccer kind of know that we're here for them if they have questions.
That sounds great. And I think
Okay.
it's good to point out that they can attend these meetings,
Right.
you
Right.
know, so if there are complaints and they're not attending the meetings, then I don't know how we're supposed to address those complaints.
Right.
And better yet, we're an elected board, so anyone who feels they can do better are welcome to run in the spring.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we're not
Yeah.
appointed, so,
Right. Yep.
you know,
Exactly. So I think I would like to, I didn't put our names on there because I wanted us to agree to this first, but I think it's important that we do list out our names.
Yes.
the three
Absolutely,
of
yeah.
us. And,
Absolutely.
but I, you know, and I think it should go to all department heads in town. And then I will work with probably Rec and Heather on identifying any organized groups, you know, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. You know, I'm thinking anybody that deals with groups of people in town.
Yeah.
right.
And
Yeah.
distribute them.
And
Okay.
I've learned not to take complaints to, I mean, everybody's so done with COVID, and unfortunately it's
know.
not going away. So there are a lot of angry people out there, and I do think we need to just take it
Yeah.
with a grain of salt. People are mad. They need to be mad at somebody.
Yeah.
So we're not going to be the fans' favorite to everybody, and that's fine.
And this is in no way, you know, I think if we need to make a policy decision that protects the public health of Southborough, then we absolutely should go ahead and do that. But I also
Right.
think that, you know, that will happen in a public meeting and will happen with deliberation. And
Correct.
I think that's what's getting lost a little bit, is that I don't think people know that this is how it works. And so this is just another opportunity for us to reach out to the community and say, we're here for you. And if you have a question, like, just ask us and we'll figure out how to answer it. And if we need you to, you know, you're welcome to come talk to us. And, you know, I think in the cases that came up most recently, they were resolved pretty easily. Like, it, you know, it was more like, oh, the Board of Health decided to do that. And I was like, we didn't talk about that. So, you know, it's just kind of clarifying how
Right.
things are working. So, so anything you'd want me to change on it?
No, I think it
Um,
looks great. I think it looks
Okay.
great. And
The-
I'd
the-
be happy to lend my name to it. So.
Me too. I please feel free.
Okay, Heather?
Two things. So just the wording at the very end where it talks about, besides COVID, the board, see the website, you may just put something like, for further information, please see the webpage. For
Okay.
further information about the Board of Health and Health Department, please see our webpage. And it just sounds weird.
Okay.
the way- I mean, we do respond to COVID and other things, but
I had a whole paragraph in there that talked about some of the other things that we did. And I was like, I'm muddying the waters with what I'm trying to get across, so that I took the whole thing out and replaced it with that. So,
It's just
Sometimes
Um,
less is more.
he's just
yeah,
less.
exactly. Something like that, Heather.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I can list out the town website there too. And I can put our emails in there too, so that it's in there. Okay. All right, so is there a motion to approve and distribute the letter to the town and community leaders on behalf of the Board of Health?
Yes.
Yes.
I make a motion as
Okay.
stated by Chelsea Malinowski,
And I
Second.
second that motion.
and vote aye.
And I
Perfect.
vote aye too.
Okay, Malinowski, aye.
And-
Okay, great. Go ahead,
And
Heather.
Chelsea, I think we passed over grants. I had also want to briefly discuss one other grant initiative I was working on that's.
Oh my gosh, I thought by renumbering
board.
and labeling everything, I wouldn't have skipped it, but you're right. I
Yeah,
did
okay.
pass on
Just-
that. Thank you. So
that's-
back to
Just, right, but just real briefly, we discussed the FDA grant already, but the state DEP, Environmental Protection, had put out a grant application for, it's not money, it's for studying air pollution in your community. And it's for outdoor air pollution sensors. So there are 5 small sensors. The issue is that they do need electricity and Wi-Fi. So you have to find hosts who are willing to support the 5 air sensors if we do get them. I have a lot of expertise and experience in human health and air pollution. So I am interested in getting them, and I have spoken with the schools and offered to provide curriculum support around this. And if we get the grant, if the school, it's due this Friday, but I think I'm just hammering out with the school willing to support them on their school buildings. But I've also, as backup, spoke with facilities about supporting. And also I reached out to a couple residents whose names I had through the SOLF environmental health group. So I think I will have supporters of the.
Well, that's great.
We get that. Yeah.
I know sometimes we're so COVID fixated.
I know,
we're
it's nice to
forgetting
think
these
that-
other.
I mean,
issues
not
and
that air
stuff else.
pollution is, not that
Something
air
other than
pollution is,
COVID.
not that it's uplifting, but it is not COVID.
But this goes on to add to the list of duties and roles that we think about as we present the town meeting. Like, this is the perfect example of something that would get overlooked.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yes. I just wrote it down. That's good.
I think the more
Okay.
things like that, because I think we're going to be dealing with COVID. I think we need to learn how to live with COVID. So if we can start, doing some other things too, and making it so less, in everybody's faces, it's kind of refreshing.
I agree. So do you need a motion for you to apply for that grant,
To
Heather?
supplement to the grant, well, I'll take one. I
Okay.
don't know if I need one, but.
So I move that we authorize Dr. Alker to apply for the DEP air pollution sensor grant to be hosted at 5 buildings within Southborough.
I second the motion and Sacco votes aye.
And I, Medina, vote aye.
Malinowski, aye. Okay, great. All right, thanks for hanging in there with me. Sorry, this is a little bit longer than what I expected, but
You're doing great.
This was
I just
very
wanted to make
productive.
sure that we got
Yeah.
the legal stuff done. So I will post for next Thursday. If you can join, great.
Okay.
After we can figure out what time we want to meet on the 12th.
Sure.
And then I think we have the rest of the meeting schedule done. So
So can I just interrupt? So if
Yeah.
I join
Or
that
not.
meeting, I just go through the town website
yeah,
to get on, like I have for
Yeah.
advisory or something like that. Okay.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And then when it comes to the Board of Health part, I'll ask that we pull you in because I'll have to call the meeting to order because if you're there, we'll have a quorum.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. And then
All right.
if you can just stay on until I adjourn our meeting, like, don't let me forget to adjourn.
Okay.
Do
I mean,
you,
and I should be able to make it too that night, so I think I'll be there too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Barbara, I don't bother with doing the minutes. I'll do the minutes for our piece of that meeting. So you don't need to,
Do you
I mean, you
need,
can-
do you need me to come in and start the meeting or anything?
No.
You're
No.
all set? Okay.
no, I just need you to post, but I can talk to you about that.
Dr. Medina,
Mm.
if you can stop by the Board of Health or the Town Hall to pick up Dr. Fazens' report, I have a copy for you.
Perfect. I will do that in the next few days. Thank you.
Okay, whichever, just let me know, text me.
Sure.
And do you guys need to talk about mask mandates in town buildings, or is that all set? Number 4.
I think we covered that when it was just an update that the selectmen took the recommendation of this board to extend the mask mandate. Thank you.
All right.
All right. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
I second.
Okay. Sacco?
I third.
Okay. Medina?
Medina, yep. I can.
Okay. Malinowski, aye. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
You too.
And